Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. DC and James Gunn just announced they finally cast Sinestro inside the DC universe for the Green Lantern HBO show, so we'll break it down, what's going on with him during the series, and what their plans are for the future. There have been so many Green Lantern stories that Warner Brothers has been terrified to tell since the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern bombed, and they begged Zack Snyder not to use Green Lantern in his Justice League Snyder Cut. That was why you heard Zack Snyder saying that he had to do all of his John Stewart Green Lantern stuff on the DL when he did the Justice League Snyder Cut, because Warner Brothers specifically asked him not to do Green Lantern stuff. Mostly because of all the PTSD from the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern stuff they had on a corporate level, like, no, stay away from this, but also at the time, back in 2021, they were thinking about doing the other version of the Green Lantern HBO show that Greg Berlanti's group of people were doing. I am sure this will come up again when we start getting these new Green Lantern HBO episodes. Like, remember, there used to be another version of this show. They basically pulled a Daredevil Born Again, like Marvel just did with that show, rebooting the reboot of the show, essentially. The only difference in the DC universe with the Green Lantern show is that there was no other previous version that ran on, like, Netflix or anything like that. Literally, they've been so afraid to do Green Lantern as a character after the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern that nobody had attempted it until present day. I think the funnier thing about Ryan Reynolds' Green Lantern, like, yes, make all the jokes about that. Every time you mention Green Lantern, it's kind of hard to not mention Ryan Reynolds' Green Lantern and all the clowning that he does on himself. But James Gunn said one of the first things he did after he got hired by DC to reboot the DC universe is call Ryan Reynolds to tell him what happened and ask him to come back in a joking kind of way.
One of the first people I talked to after I got the job was Ryan Reynolds. I'm like, you coming back? He's like, get the fuck out of here.
Love the idea that Ryan Reynolds basically told him to completely F off. Now, that's a joke, though. Like, he wasn't actually asking him to come back and be Hal Jordan. He was just joking with them, just having a little bit of fun between bros. But that would be hilarious if Ryan Reynolds actually did cameo as some completely different character in the future of the DC universe. Like, just in the background. Then after the movie or after the TV show or whatever, they told you, oh, that alien in the background under all the makeup, that was actually Ryan Reynolds. Because it kind of sounds like Ryan Reynolds never, ever wants to come back, or at least come back as a version of Hal Jordan Green Lantern. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the episodes. I will be doing episode videos weekly when it does get here. It'll be coming after Peacemaker Season 2. That's coming after the Superman movie, which we're going to see later this year. We will see Peacemaker Season 2 episodes this year, but Green Lantern won't air until next year. The whole reason why you're hearing about Sinestro right now, all the other characters like Kyle Chandler's Hal Jordan, Aaron Pierre's John Stewart, is because they're shooting the series now. The real big news you probably saw yesterday is that Ulrich Thompson, who you probably remember from Banshee with Anthony Starr, who's Homelander on The Boys right now, is going to be their Sinestro, which reminded me that Anthony Starr would be the most amazing Reverse Flash inside the new James Gunn DCU. Please make him Reverse Flash, even though I don't think he's going to do that. But there have actually been a lot of DCU fan castings out there that have seemingly come true the last year or so. When James Gunn made the announcement, Anthony Starr was also hyping up Ulrich Thompson on social media like he was so happy for him, because now he has also joined the superhero genre, just in a completely different cinematic universe. If you didn't watch those original Banshee episodes, that was Anthony Starr's first real big series, his first big claim to fame before he became Homelander on The Boys. Ulrich Thompson was the main villain of that series. If you've not watched those episodes, it's actually a pretty fantastic series that's getting way more play now because it just hit on Netflix and a lot of other streaming services where people didn't see it when it was back on Showtime. What they're saying is that Sinestro is going to be a recurring character during the series, meaning that he's not going to be in every single episode, but he'll be in a number of episodes, probably both in present day and in flashbacks, to mirror the relationship between Hal Jordan and John Stewart, because Sinestro was the mentor of Hal Jordan when he first became a Green Lantern. So it'll probably be one of those arcs where Hal Jordan has a lot of PTSD over the way things went sideways with Sinestro and him becoming a Yellow Lantern, worried that he'll break bad too, like he'll do wrong by John Stewart. But I think that means that in present day, Sinestro has long since quit the Green Lantern Corps because you have an older Hal Jordan, older Sinestro, so it's been a long time since he's broke bad and quit the Green Lantern Corps and become a Yellow Lantern. But when the series picks up in present day, I don't think Sinestro has created the Sinestro Corps yet. He's still operating by himself. But when we talk about Hal Jordan being worried that he's also going to do wrong by John Stewart, the way that Sinestro kind of broke bad and it broke Hal Jordan in a sense, if you haven't read the comics, it's meant to be kind of ironic because Hal Jordan himself did break bad in a really big way during the big 0 Hour event. A lot of people were talking about this when they first announced Kyle Chandler was going to be an older Hal Jordan, like maybe they're doing older Hal Jordan because they want to do a version of Parallax. Way back after comic book Crisis on Infinite Earths, Hal Jordan was driven mad after the destruction of his hometown, Coast City, turned into Parallax, basically merging with the Parallax entity, which we saw during the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern movie. Parallax is the demonic entity that lives inside the Yellow Lantern battery. He's the living embodiment of fear, so all Yellow Lantern rings draw their power, their energy from him. Hal Jordan basically became the host of Parallax briefly, meaning that he contained the entire power of an entire Yellow Lantern battery in himself, making himself god-tier powerful. Wound up killing a whole bunch of people in the DC universe before they all stopped him, but that was the big 0 Hour event. Originally in the comics, Sinestro didn't actually turn evil. That wasn't why he quit the Green Lantern Corps. He just stopped agreeing with what the Owens were making the Green Lanterns do, their whole mission for operating around the galaxy. He started to think that it was a good idea to open themselves up to other emotions in the emotional spectrum, fear for instance, which led to him quitting the Green Lantern Corps and becoming a Yellow Lantern. But at the time, he was the only one wearing a Yellow Lantern ring, the only Yellow Lantern in the entire universe for a long time. Then eventually Jeff Johns comes along and he writes the War of Light, Blackest Night, and you have all these different Lantern Corps rising up around the different emotional spectrums. That was when he created the full-blown Sinestro Corps with a whole bunch of Yellow Lanterns. If they're going to do something like that in the new James Gunn DCU, they'd have to build up to it, and it would take a good long while to do that. But the way they've been pitching the Green Lantern series is that it's revolving around this big mystery that's tied to the overarching Justice League level storyline that they'll eventually build up to. The early rumor on that is that somebody is killed, like a Green Lantern is killed, and they don't know why. It might wind up being Nathan Fillion's Guy Gardner. We'll see about that because he's also supposed to show up during the series. But the way James Gunn has been talking about it is basically True Detective inside the DC universe with Hal Jordan and John Stewart, so that's why I think that it's revolving around a murder mystery. They kind of got into Hal Jordan and Sinestro's backstory in the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern movie with the Mark Strong version of Sinestro. Mark Strong has been all over the DC universe at this point. Like, we saw him as Sinestro during that Green Lantern movie, then we saw him during the Shazam movie, then he came back during the Penguin Season 1. No doubt he will return as a completely different character inside the James Gunn DCU in the next 10 years. Going around DC collecting characters like lantern rings. They started to deal with the whole Sinestro arc during the end of that Green Lantern movie where he has this big disagreement with the Owens, then eventually takes the Yellow Lantern ring and becomes a Yellow Lantern, implying that he was quitting the Green Lantern Corps shortly after that in that post-credit scene. Had that movie not bombed the way it did, Ryan Reynolds continued to be Green Lantern, we would have never gotten Deadpool, so I think things worked out the way they were supposed to work out, like it all was fine in the end. It was meant to die. But had that movie gotten a sequel, Green Lantern 2 would have featured more of Yellow Lantern Sinestro being the main antagonist, and probably a full-on Sinestro Corps by the end of the third movie. Maybe larger plans with the War of Light, Blackest Night in that era of DC had that continued, but that's pre-Zack Snyder DC, you have to remember, and at the time, they were actually working on a Justice League from George Miller separately with like another version of Batman from the Christopher Nolan, Christian Bale Batman Dark Knight movies. That was actually going to be the Armie Hammer version of Batman that I just did a video about a little while ago. So at the time, even though DC was a complete mess, I think because that version of George Miller's Justice League featured Common as a version of John Stewart and didn't feature Hal Jordan, it was because it was going to release in 2011, the same year that Ryan Reynolds' Green Lantern Hal Jordan movie released. So had everything worked out, they probably planned to eventually cross over Ryan Reynolds' Hal Jordan movies with the George Miller Justice League movies had those been successful and gotten sequels. But the whole problem with that is that Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, his movies with Christian Bale, blew up so big in the writer's strike of 2009 basically killed George Miller's Justice League, so everything just kind of wound up working the way that you saw it go down. Eventually Zack Snyder came along and they tried again for another Justice League trilogy, which also kind of didn't work out. Cut to now with James Gunn and his reboot of DC into the DCU with Superman later this year. Hopefully, it will all eventually work out. Like, I think DC fans are just waiting for a Justice League franchise, like the next 10 years plus, where it just works out and we don't have to deal with all the drama. If it wasn't clear though, all the Green Lantern HBO stuff is meant to cross over with the movies. It's all canon to the movies, and I think that John Stewart, Aaron Pierre's character during that series, will be the Green Lantern that eventually joins the Justice League when they do form in the DCU. Because the way that James Gunn explained it, when the Superman movie picks up, the Justice League has not formed yet. We probably won't see that happen for several years. Like, I think he's slowly building up to a Justice League team-up, which I think is the right way to go. Like, first establish all these characters, develop them, and then put them on a Justice League together instead of trying to introduce them all in the first 2 movies and then doing Justice League. But everyone post all your reactions in the comments below. Really interested to see what this new version of Sinestro is like compared to the Mark Strong Sinestro, who we barely saw, like we barely got any of him in that movie. Really just want to see some footage from that Green Lantern series, but because they just started filming, we're probably not going to get a teaser for that till like the very end of this year or like early next year. There's a ton of big stuff coming up. We have the new Superman trailer coming during the Super Bowl. Of course, I will do all the videos for that. James Gunn teased some big Krypto reveal, maybe some more Krypto footage. James Gunn was making it seem like there'd be a lot more Krypto footage during that because they'd be releasing footage during the Puppy Bowl, and that's very dog-based kind of event around the Super Bowl. So maybe it will just be a very Krypto-themed Superman trailer. Whatever they wind up releasing, of course I will do videos for it. Everybody click here for all my new Superman videos, and click here to learn about that Armie Hammer version of Batman in the fake Batman movie that he's actually making right now, which is absolutely crazy. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.